Tonight on Bridge City News, provincial leaders have sent a letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau expressing their concern over Bills C-69 and C-48. The Steffens trial continued in Lethbridge today with a disagreement as to how much oxygen 18-month-old Ezekiel received prior to his death. And the Toronto Raptors came up a little short in their bid to win their first NBA championship last night. We have the details.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Robbins.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Premiers from 5 provinces and 1 territory have joined forces writing a letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau expressing their concerns over Bills C-69 and C-48. Both bills are considered anti-energy and in particular anti-pipeline. Premiers from Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, New Brunswick, and the Northwest Territories say they represent 59% of our country's population and 63% of Canada's GDP. The premiers, including Alberta's Jason Kenney, say these bills in their original form would damage the economy and investment from one coast to the other. In the letter, it stated that Bill C-69, as originally drafted, would make it virtually impossible to develop critical infrastructure, depriving Canada of much-needed investment. The 5 provinces and territories stand united and strongly urge the government to accept Bill C-69 as amended by the Senate in order to minimize the damage to the Canadian economy. The letter also took shots at Bill C-48, the tanker ban bill, saying it too threatens investor confidence since it discriminates against Western Canadian crude products. Alberta is bringing in legislation this fall to create a Crown Corporation to help First Nations start up or invest in energy projects. Premier Kenney made the announcement after meeting with First Nations leaders yesterday. He says it will level the playing field for some First Nations that do not have deep pockets to invest in projects like the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Treaty 6 Nations Grand Chief Wilton Littlechild says his group had concerns about whether it was possible to have sustainable development while still protecting the environment. He says from his experience, the answer is yes. The temperature inside of a Lethbridge courtroom rose today as questioning heated up between David Steffen and a former chief medical examiner. Steffen, along with his wife Colette, are being retried for failing to provide the necessaries of life for their 18-month-old son Ezekiel, who died. Steffen said the first ambulance that tended to his son was missing key equipment, which left the toddler without oxygen for about 9 minutes. Dr. Bamidele Ediegbo told the court that Ezekiel clearly died of bacterial meningitis and a lung infection, and that there was in fact sufficient oxygen. The trial continues tomorrow. The man convicted of killing a Calgary woman and her 5-year-old daughter is appealing his convictions and sentence. Edward Downey was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 50 years after he was convicted of first-degree murder in the deaths of Sarah Bailey and her daughter Talia Marsman. Judge Beth Hughes called the 49-year-old Downey a callous and remorseless individual. During the trial, it was revealed that Downey killed Bailey because he blamed her for the breakdown of his relationship with her best friend, and the young girl was a witness who Downey said needed silencing. Downey's lawyer cites several grounds in filing for the appeal, including errors in pretrial rulings and the opposing of consecutive periods of parole ineligibility. After many citizens voiced their concerns, Coaldale Town Council has voted in favor of a location across the train tracks to potentially build a high school and multi-use recreational building. 2 weeks ago, at a council meeting, citizens voiced their concerns about the area. Mayor Kim Craig and his staff put together a report that is 600 pages in length and will be moving forward with the project.
The town has control of the rec center only, so we will be moving forward. We have the debenture funding, the borrowing bylaw in place for that, so we'll continue on that track, and hopefully we can do a joint development to get some real good economies of scale and synergy for the project.
Council's report, intended to put citizens at ease, included location of schools, train tracks, and emergency response times. Also from Coaldale, the town is finally going to be receiving a brand new RCMP building. The project will cost $11.5 million. Many people, including the builders, gathered to share the news during a sod-turning ceremony yesterday. Staff Sergeant Glenn Henry, who's been working out of 2 offices since 2016, and his staff have been working out of a portion of the Coaldale town office. Coaldale Mayor Kim Craig was delighted to share the news.
To bring jobs to our economy, and a lot of men and women in the service that will be providing higher visibility of policing to our community. And the fact that it's finally happening, we engaged the RCMP in 2016, and now we're almost in mid 2019, and finally the construction's going, so reality is happening. So it is a big relief to see it actually happening. So those are many of the things that it means to me as mayor of the town.
Our work as Canada's National Police Force is rooted in earning the trust and building meaningful relationships with the people that we serve. But without a local detachment, it's hard for us to demonstrate that we're really part of the community. The establishment of this detachment is a great example of our commitment to the communities that we serve across the province. The RCMP is invested in modernizing through advanced, efficient, and innovative policing techniques and strategies, and all this begins at the community level. Having a strong presence in the community is an important aspect of police work. To be effective, we need to understand the challenges of those that we serve, and we can only do that by having a presence in the community.
Potential construction dates have not yet been finalized. Lethbridge City Council say they have a plan to save over $2 million when it comes to our city's landfill site. The city announced at yesterday's council meeting that it will borrow $5.5 million less to pay for a new disposal cell at the landfill, but will borrow $3.3 million to pay for landfill gas management. Waste and Recycling Services Manager Joel Sanchez says 25 years of buried rotting organic matter is seeping out of the landfill, which is why it needs to invest more in gas management. The numbers are in from the Lethbridge Target Hunger campaign, and it's safe to say it was another huge success. A joint statement from Interfaith and Lethbridge food banks say close to 42,000 pounds of food was collected. The annual campaign had volunteers around the city collecting non-perishables for those who were less fortunate. The 42,000 was a slight decrease from the 48,000 pounds that were collected in 2018. Donations are still being accepted at any major grocery store or at the food bank. A Lethbridge family has over 200,000 bees in their backyard. And they say that neighbors have not complained, but thank them for providing pollination for their gardens. The family says bees serve a very important medical purpose.
I started with the bees because I was using bees for therapy. I have Lyme disease, and bee stinging on the back is not a popular way of treating the bees, but it's effective. I go to the hive and I collect 10 bees, bring them in the house, put them in reverse tweezers, and my wife stings just beside my spine, up and down my back.
If you're interested in beekeeping, all hives must be registered with the province of Alberta. Project Paintbrush is painting Lethbridge with a difference. The initiative helps paint exterior projects for seniors and people in the community who are physically and financially unable to complete the work themselves. BCN's Loris Alexander reports on the visible difference being made by the volunteers.
For the past 16 years, Volunteer Lethbridge's Project Paintbrush has worked towards brightening people's lives and bringing pride to the community.
Well, this project is designed to give seniors and other people with disabilities a sense of pride in their home. So what we do is we select people, again with disabilities and financial disadvantages. We select them to paint their fence, and so we get a group of volunteers together. Everything's paid by sponsors. There's nothing out of the homeowner's pocket.
Volunteers like these University of Lethbridge students donate their time to paint for people unable to complete the work for themselves.
I think this is a very cool volunteering project, mostly because of how tangible the result is. Like, I've been out scraping the front windows for a couple of, man, has it been an hour yet? Just a lot of tangible work that, when you're done, you can look at it and just see the difference that is made and the impact that it has on the person's well-being, of course, as well.
It's just amazing to be able to come out and support our community and show our support. Today, the homeowner came out and you could see the smile on her face when she saw all the volunteers out here ready to help. And you just know that she's going to be able to enjoy this space so much more once we're finished.
I think it's really great that we're helping people in need out. With something even as simple as this.
And it's also a really great way to give back to the community as well. As a university as a whole, we tend to really define our liberal education roots to giving back to the community and really learning about what the community has to give.
Project Paintbrush is dependent on volunteers, sponsors, and donors within the community. For more information, please visit volunteerlethbridge.ca. For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
Now here's something to feast your pies on. The Southern Alberta Individualized Planning Association is holding its third annual fundraising campaign, which will send pies flying across the city. The lighthearted event will allow people to throw a pie in the face of family, friends, or coworkers for a minimum donation of $20.
So Pie It Forward is a fun event that we put on that really gets camaraderie going. You can send a pie to your friend to get them, put a pie in their face, and they have the opportunity to send it back. And really the main idea behind it is that we're trying to raise funds to help support our workshop program here at SAPA. Our workshop program provides living skills and advocacy skills. We help support individuals with developmental disabilities be empowered and engaged citizens in their community. So we like to focus on rights and self-advocacy. Those workshops help support that, as well as lifestyle skills, so things that help people be less vulnerable and more independent.
Money raised from Pie It Forward will assist the group in enhancing its self-advocacy workshop. Course topics include rights, healthy relationships, self-esteem, and abuse prevention. The workshops will give adults with disabilities the skills to be safe, self-determined leaders in their own lives. Country music legend Garth Brooks says he has added a second concert date in Regina this summer at the request of Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe. A statement from Brooks says he will play the additional concert on August the 9th. His scheduled event on August 10th sold out in just 59 minutes. Moe tweeted, "Great news, Saskatchewan," after Brooks announced he would be extending his stay in Regina. This next story may be a little disturbing to some of our viewers. Surveillance video obtained by the Associated Press shows two fast-moving Chicago police vehicles with sirens blaring and emergency lights on violently crashing at an intersection. One of the vehicles then crashed into another car, killing 84-year-old retired teacher Verona Gunn. A warning now that what you're about to see is quite graphic. The Gunn's family lawyer says the police vehicles violated department rules which dictate that officers responding to calls should slow down as they approach intersections. The family of Verona Gunn has filed a lawsuit. In the crisis-torn country of Venezuela, people are doing what they can to make ends meet. Elisette Gonzalez sits in a marketplace in Caracas and repairs broken light bulbs for people who simply cannot afford new ones.
In crisis-torn Venezuela, necessity is proving to be the mother of invention. Elisette Gonzalez is taking spent light bulbs and making them shine bright once again. It's a skill that has become vital in a country where hyperinflation has made many salaries worthless. New light bulbs can cost as much as the minimum wage. Elisette fixes old ones for a fraction of the price. Others have found creative ways to earn a living from scraps. Vladimir Fajardo takes used soda bottles and transforms them into toys.
Gente que gracias a Dios que hay gente, mis hijos, si te doy $1 porque no tengo $1 te sirve, sí, deme $1 y ¿me entiendes? Vendo el dólar y bueno, y con eso me bandeo y comí todo.
Some Venezuelans say it's positive to see people recycling, but lament it as another sign of the nation's economic meltdown. Christine Armario, The Associated Press.
Another terrorist plot was foiled, and this one took place in the UK. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari says these were Iran-linked terrorists who were caught stockpiling explosives. Lisa says it traces back to Hezbollah joining forces with the Iranian regime.
There's a lot of money taken and stolen from the people of Iran. And in the name of sanctions, the people of Iran suffer so that they can blame the U.S. and blame the West for the people's hardships. And then this is what the regime does. They pour their money into these types of terror plots and suicide bombers all around the globe.
Lisa will also have the latest with the trade war between the U.S. and China coming up in the second half of our show. Fans across Canada witnessed an incredible basketball game last night as Canada's team, the Toronto Raptors, fell just short of winning the NBA championship, losing 106-105 to the Golden State Warriors. More than 20,000 fans in Toronto's Jurassic Park could not believe what they just witnessed.
And the Toronto Raptors come up 1 point short.
How are you feeling right now?
devastated. I was confident that they were going to bring it home. And I mean, it was a close game, and clearly they were fighting for it, but I thought they were going to pull it through.
Like, we should have won this. This was our game. This was our freaking game in our city, and we lost it. I'm sad, but I have hope. We're coming back. We're going to take it.
Well, I've been out here pretty well every game, and they are just the best fans on earth. You know, they're outside an arena. They don't have any prospect, obviously, of getting in for this game, and they're here. And they were here this morning when I was here, like at 7 o'clock, and it was pouring rain. They're the best fans in the world, and I think the other NBA cities are taking notice because they've never seen anything quite like this.
During the first quarter of last night's contest, the Warriors' Kevin Durant suffered an Achilles injury, which may keep him out for the rest of the series. Raptors coach Nick Nurse says it was a sad moment when the All-Star player went down.
Dude, I love KD, love watching him play, and I when anybody goes down, you're saddened by it. But when one of the great players like that goes down, it's almost shocking.
You know, it's devastating. You know, and I feel bad for him. You know, I've been in that situation before. I hope he has a speedy recovery, and just gets healthy, and hope that he's going to be okay mentally.
We wish Kevin Durant all the best. Game 6 is back in Oakland on Thursday. Hopefully the Raptors can pull out another big win on the road. We had another beautiful summer-like day today. The mercury will be climbing even more throughout the week. All of the weather details are on deck. We had sun mixed with cloud today and warm. Tonight, just a few clouds with a low near 9. Tomorrow, sunny and hot with a high near 28 expected. Thursday, a chance of showers developing and a high near 30. Friday, mainly overcast with the temperature dropping to 21. Saturday, a chance of showers again with a high expected near 22. Sunday, the clouds should clear out and we should see a high near 23. Monday, partly cloudy with a high near 25 degrees. Looking at the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 22 and an average low of 8. The highest temperature in this state was recorded in 1965 at 33 degrees, and the record low was +1 in 1969. Sunrise was at 5:24, sunset at 9:38. Let's see how tomorrow's shaping up across the country now. It'll be mostly cloudy and 26 in Victoria, overcast and 25 in Vancouver. Sunshine and 27 in both Calgary and Edmonton. A mixture of sun and cloud at 24 for Regina. Mostly cloudy and 25 for Saskatoon. Winnipeg will be partly cloudy and 21. Toronto will be mainly sunny and 23. Ottawa will have a few clouds and 23 as well. Sunshine and 25 degrees for Montreal. In the Maritimes, Fredericton, New Brunswick will have a clear sky and 24 tomorrow. Halifax, Nova Scotia will be clearing in 21. Charlottetown, PEI will have showers in 21. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect rain and a high near 12 degrees tomorrow. Producers are beginning to feel the results of the Chinese ban on many Canadian products, including our canola and peas, and now China says there are issues with our meat. Leighton Kolk with Kolk Farms says China is making life tougher for beef producers like himself.
Pork is still moving. It's just under greater scrutiny and reduced speed of commerce. Beef has not been affected, but it's a cloud on the horizon for sure. Canola, as we talked about, is slowed down considerably. How will it affect it? These things take time to kind of get back to the ledger on the profit loss side of the ledger, but we are feeling it, and the agricultural community will feel the pain.
Catch the full interview with Mr. Kolk discussing some of the biggest challenges producers in Canada face right now, coming up after Business News. S&C Lavalin Group is looking for a new CEO after its stock dropped 60% in value over the past year. The Montreal-based construction giant says Neil Bruce is retiring and returning to his family in the UK. Chief Operating Officer Ian Edwards has been named interim CEO today. He's been asked to undertake a review of the strategic direction of the company. The review comes after a Quebec judge ordered the company to face trial on fraud and corruption charges. S&C Lavalin was engulfed in a major political scandal after former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould alleged she was pressured to negotiate a deferred prosecution agreement in the case. A survey on trust in the internet has found about a quarter of the people surveyed in 25 countries do not trust it. In Canada, 89% of those polled mistrust social media the most. Almost 9 in 10 surveyed say they've been fooled by fake news at least once. Facebook was the most commonly noted source of phony news, followed by Twitter. The survey was conducted by the Centre for International Governance Innovation in Waterloo, Ontario. It says growing distrust online has prompted people to disclose less information and purchase fewer items online. Tax company H&R Block says the acquisition of accounting software firm Wave Financial will expand its client and software portfolio. The Kansas City-based company has announced a deal to buy all outstanding shares of Wave for about $537 million in cash. Wave is to maintain its leadership team and will operate independently within H&R Block from its headquarters in Toronto. It provides accounting, invoicing, and payment software on its platform by more than 400,000 small businesses each month. Now, here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, premiers from 5 provinces and the Northwest Territories joined forces and wrote a letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The leaders expressed their concerns over Bill C-69 and C-48, which they say in their original form would be severely damaging not only to our country's energy sector, but to our entire economy. The group wants Trudeau to consider all of the amendments to C-69 made by the Senate to limit the damage to our economy. They also want to see C-48, which many refer to as the anti-tanker bill, scrapped altogether. A terror plot in the UK was recently foiled. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari has details next. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Lethbridge Women's Connection presents Let Us Entertain You, Thursday, June 13th in the lower level of the Keg. This inspiring evening will feature a delicious dinner, live musical entertainment by the Sassay Quartet and Southern Accord Chorus. Plus, freelance writer and ovarian cancer survivor Kathy Mogus will share a powerful message called From Failure to Freedom. Cost is $22. For reservations, call B at 403-328-1708 or call Linda at 403-381-2574. The IG Wealth Management Walk for Alzheimer's is taking place Saturday, June 15th at Nicholas Sharon Park in West Lethbridge. Registration opens at 10 a.m., followed by opening ceremonies at 11. After the walk, enjoy a barbecue lunch. For more information, visit walkforalzheimers.ca or call the Alzheimer's Society at 403-329-3766. The annual Dragon Boat Festival is coming up June 21st to the 23rd in Lethbridge, and there are several opportunities for volunteers to get involved in this fun event. Organizers are looking for ride-side assistance, help with administration and t-shirt tents, and more. For more information on how to get involved and to sign up, visit lethbridgedragonfest.ca. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
U.S. President Donald Trump declares a victory in a deal with Mexico that critics say will do little to curb the flow of immigrants. He says there's more to the migrant deal with Mexico than meets the eye. To talk more about it and other big stories from around the globe is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining me from Los Angeles. Lisa, Trump says there are more details to the migrant deal with Mexico than he announced, but would offer not many more specifics.
You know, this is an interesting deal that was cut, and very quickly. The point of this deal wasn't to penalize Mexico in an economic way. It wasn't to impose tariffs that are lucrative in any sort of way. After all, the U.S. and Mexico and Canada are partners in what was formerly known as NAFTA. And will continue to be. But this is more so to emphasize that the U.S. and Donald Trump needs help with the border. And it was a lot of words and no action coming from Mexico. So now when, the New York Times broke a story that said that we're not getting the full entire deal, we're not getting the big picture here. And the White House kind of barked back with, no, this is pretty much it. And then Donald Trump then says, no, there's more to it than meets the eye. But I think what he means is going forward that there will be a more robust relationship with Mexico and the U.S., meaning that this is a positive thing. Of course, the press here in the United States relentlessly is beating down on Donald Trump and foreign policy, and sometimes it's deserved, when it comes to rhetoric, but with action, we can't really criticize what we don't know. So whatever happened behind closed doors was to push forward a relationship with Mexico and the U.S. where they would collaborate on keeping a safer border between the countries. And again, this is going to behoove both the U.S. and Mexico. This is not just a one-sided, unilateral kind of actions being put on Mexico for the sake of just the United States. So this will be beneficial to both sides, and hopefully now this brings in, again, the trifecta, Canada, U.S., Mexico, to move forward and have a stronger coalition going forward.
Now, the tariff dispute between the United States and Mexico, some would say, has really complicated things. Will it really disrupt the new NAFTA deal?
I don't think it's going to disrupt anything that was already going to be in place. I think this was just a slap on the wrist and a reminder to Mexico that they have to play along, and they're not just going to get a free ride on this new NAFTA deal, but they have to be a partner when it comes to sovereign borders, when it comes to keeping the migrants at bay. Again, Mexico is suffering as well. Tourism is down. They're suffering, their border cities, with a lot of crime, a lot of gangs, and a lot of rapes, a lot of narcotics coming over the border, etc. So again, this is not something that is just meant to punish Mexico. This is something that will take into account the future of Mexico-U.S. relations, and vis-a-vis NAFTA, we will, or the new NAFTA, that's not its name anymore, the art is formerly known as NAFTA, we will hopefully move forward with a stronger Western hemisphere that can combat a lot of the other threats that we are dealing in the Eastern hemisphere, in the Southern hemisphere, etc.
Yeah, the new USMCA. Lisa, a recent story we had on Bridge City News was how Hong Kong was plunged into political crisis after hundreds of thousands of protesters were protesting that extradition law. As for those protests, the Chinese state media is blaming foreign forces.
Yes, of course they will blame the foreign forces. This is a very predictable when Hong Kong is being told that their prisoners will be transferred to and be tried in China. Of course, that doesn't really give them the assurance of a fair trial, of of their loved ones being sent to China to be tried and to be imprisoned. They want nothing to do with China. That's the bottom line. So the people flooded the streets. The reports internally say that there were over 1 million, but the police reports say about 200,000. So take it with a grain of salt. There were a lot of people out on the streets, a lot of people that wanted to protest this new law. And of course, China thinks, well, the foreign the media and news about foreign policy with the U.S. trying to punish China, putting them under the spotlight, has put China in this negative light. So now you have protests from Hong Kong, and you have Taiwan all of a sudden becoming this big bad wolf in the region, and you have Japan speaking out for their rights, and you have South Korea wanting a piece of the pie. So in the way that China sees it, this is the U.S.'s fault for kind of awakening all these different forces in the region. But again, all these chess pieces were already in place. It's just someone like Donald Trump was, I guess, needed to come and rattle everything up, and we'll see where it puts us on the other side.
Iran's military is at high level ready, Lisa. A U.S. commander has weighed in on the expanded Mideast force to counter Iran. Tell me more about that.
This is looking at what almost happened with Iran, and can it happen again? These are the integral questions that everyone's asking right now. So militarily, we're not looking to get into a war with Iran. Nobody is looking to get into a war anywhere in 2019. And wars, some may argue, are fought elsewhere, like in cyberspace, and with sanctions and tariffs and in other ways. So, we are combating Iran and trying to deal with the threat of the Iranian regime, expanding its weapons arsenal, expanding its missile program, etc., in different ways. But what we don't want to do is take our eyes and minds off of the potential of a military conflict with Iran. So what happened was we in the United States moved our assets to the region for a couple of reasons. First, because we wanted to see what the Iranians would do in that case. Second, if they would close off the Strait of Hormuz, thereby punishing the West and any kind of trade that comes through there. And maybe I would add to that to kind of show them or kind of flex our own muscles to say that we're not going to take this sitting down. So we saw a lot of different muscle flexing, saber rattling, etc. And now, again, the question becomes, militarily speaking, how prepared were they? How ready were they to attack? Or was this just more muscle flexing? And in the realm of readiness, how big of a threat is the Iranian regime? So these are all questions that are being asked right now. And this is not just Iran. This is not just the U.S.'s problem. This is more of an issue for other countries in the Middle East that are looking to combat the Iranian threat.
Iran-linked terrorists were caught stockpiling explosives in northwest London, Lisa. Another terror plot foiled?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is more of the same. I saw a headline this morning that pretty much summarizes this. We used to refer to Hezbollah as a proxy of Iran, meaning it was a terrorist group that Iran would pour money into to do their dirty work all around the world, but mainly located in Lebanon. And nowadays, what people don't talk about is how they are relocating to South America, just at the footstep of the U.S. I know this is a threat for Canada as well, for Mexico, et cetera. It's right up the Western Hemisphere. Having Hezbollah, a proxy of the Iranian regime. Think about the pass-off scenario if they should get nuclear weapons. Think about all the different threats that involves. But nowadays, it's not that the Hezbollah is a proxy of the Iranian regime. It's that they are partners with the Iranian regime, meaning when you say Hezbollah, it's synonymous with saying the Iranian regime. So when you have a terror plot like this foiled in London with explosives that are being passed, think about all the different scenarios. We talk about ISIS being, decimated. We talk about Al-Qaeda on the march, and all the different terror threats that have been really so-called eliminated from the globe. But this is the biggest threat, and it's alive and well. And there's a lot of money taken and stolen from the people of Iran. And in the name of sanctions, the people of Iran suffer so that they can blame the U.S. and blame the West for the people's hardships. And then this is what the regime does. They pour their money into these types of terror plots and suicide bombers all around the globe.
The trade war between Canada and China continues. China has banned the imports of Canadian canola, peas, now making life difficult for our beef and pork producers. But the U.S. is having its own issues with China. Lisa, Trump says he's perfectly happy to hit China with new tariffs if the meeting with Xi Jinping does not go very well.
Right, and what are the chances that it will go well? We got to look at our track record so far and realize that this is not a normal partner that we're dealing with. The same can probably be said about the North Korean leader, perhaps the mullahs in Iran and Maduro in Venezuela. Something that must be said here. So when we defend the Trump-style foreign policy, and I don't mean just Trump, I think right now it's become, the globe has been divided into the good guys and the bad guys, and this is before Trump's time. This was also the same under President Obama, but President Obama chose not to take sides, and it was more of a wishy-washy foreign policy. But let's say we go forward with this Trump-esque foreign policy to isolate the bad guy. And when you look at an actor like China that's not bending to the threats of increased tariffs, we wonder if this strategy will work and where it's going to put us. Same goes for North Korea, and as I said, the list goes on. And with China, it looks like, well, it's definitely affected their economy. Those are the reports that I'm hearing from inside the country. But they're not acknowledging that, in their leadership, and they're not acknowledging that when they come to the negotiating table with Donald Trump. And that's what he's hoping for. He's hoping that the economic burden of these tariffs will bring them to the negotiating table and give the U.S. leverage in talks going forward. We haven't seen that yet, but we're hoping that this strategy will take us to that point.
China says its May trade surplus was $41.65 billion, significantly more than expected. What are we to make of that? Oh, and by the way, China is also about to roll out export controls on sensitive technology.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we can believe that. I'm hearing conflicting reports. I'm hearing that they're taking quite a hit with the current tariffs, and it would make sense that they would, right? U.S. being a huge economy that does business with them, and China relying on these exports. Again, the U.S.'s problem with China isn't just the exports. It's not just that they've, enriched themselves so well over the last decade or so with these exports, et cetera. It's more the way that they're behaving. Those electronic exports, where did they come from? Where do these ideas come from? Are they stealing them? Are they stealing patents? Are they stealing all sorts of ideas? They're not playing fairly, and that's the bottom line. So, when we're hearing all kinds of reports coming out of China, how much of it can we trust? And on the flip side, when will they give in or at least concede the fact that they have not been playing fairly? And if they want to play on the world economic stage going forward, there are rules that need to be followed. So we'll see.
News out of Venezuela and that the country's UN-protected botanical gardens are dying of thirst as the water is being cut off. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, this is another one of those side effect stories that we hear coming out of Venezuela. So we know how abysmal the situation is over there, humanitarian crisis, people obviously on the march, hungry, dumpster diving, selling their hair and kidneys and organs, and sending their children off and separating themselves as families and not being able to put food on the table. And we've heard all of this. And we've heard how, the supplies coming in from other places have been stopped and the Maduro regime not allowing these supplies to go in. But this story talks about how, just the resources that have been cut off from the people have also affected animal life. They've affected botanical life. They're affecting all sorts of aspects of life in Venezuela. And it's a very sad story to tell because Venezuela is a beautiful country, beautiful people, beautiful assets, and it's really it's gone to a place where it's going to take a long time to come back. So we'll see what happens with the Maduro regime. We've heard less and less from the opposition. We thought that they had a great chance to take over. We thought that we had a lot of defectors from the military and the protesters, but it's kind of fizzling out. So we'll see where that puts us.
Yeah, we don't hear much of Juan Guaido anymore, do we? The opposition leader.
No, we don't.
Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining me once again from Los Angeles. Thanks so much, Lisa.
My pleasure.
The crops are on the ground, but now many farmers are hoping for a little bit of rain, right? Wouldn't that be nice? Where are we at when it comes to Canada's agriculture sector? To discuss this, we're joined at the desk right now by Leighton Culk, owner of Culk Farms and board member of the Alberta Cattle Feeders Association. Leighton, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you.
How many head of cattle do you have?
We have a one-time capacity of 20,000.
Well, that's a good size. So that's kind of a nice mid-size. And a lot of what, Black Angus?
A majority of Black and Red Angus, yeah, you bet.
That's pretty good. Now, it's been kind of dry, as you probably have noticed so far. How has that really impacted things, not only for beef producers, but those who are working with a lot of grains?
Yeah, we're seeing this drought kind of following up on another drought that we've had. Kind of the past 2 years have been extremely dry in the province and the Canadian kind of western provinces. So yeah, without irrigation, we'd be in real trouble in this area. Many of the prairie provinces are quite dry and crops are starting to struggle. We're seeing grain prices starting to creep up in anticipation of a poorer crop.
So now what about grain farmers potentially less of a crop? Would higher prices with a higher demand maybe offset that to some degree? What are your thoughts?
Well, a farm makes money by either growing a really big crop at reasonable prices, or in a case like this, they might grow a poorer crop, and for a farmer, then hopefully higher prices to offset that. Right now, we haven't lost the crop yet. It's early June. We could get some good rains and still make a very abundant crop yet in the prairie provinces. But if this drought would continue, it's gonna affect yield, and lower yield means less product to sell.
It's a little more expensive.
Which means often the price will go up. If it's either supply or demand. If there's less supply or greater demand, the prices go up.
How about crop insurance? One of the stories we had recently on Bridge City News was all of the hail. Last year in June was one of the worst on record across the prairie provinces when it came to hail damage. Now, hail, you weren't impacted so much here in southwestern Alberta, but you were, what, a few years ago?
Yeah, it's just hailstorms are just hit and miss sort of thing. So you might have a region 10 miles over that got hail and you didn't. But we didn't experience much hail damage last year. The year before, we definitely did on some of our crops.
How about crop insurance? How much does that help you, especially with severe drought conditions?
Yeah, crop insurance is there's two types of crop insurance. One is we can get hail insurance, which just kind of covers you for the incidents of hail, and you'll get paid out by how much damage there is. If there's also a whole crop insurance, it's called, and that one takes your yield into account. So if you have a greatly reduced yield for some reason, there is an insurance payout to help offset that. I guess the jury's out yet until we see how our crop produces this year, but most people would carry some of that whole crop insurance, which will hopefully offset some of the lack of production if it stays this dry.
Let's talk a bit about what's happening with China, their ban on Canadian canola. You have canola as well. Tell me about some of the challenges and if that ban lasts a little bit longer, maybe another 6 months to a year.
Right. So canola prices did take a hit when this trade
war
issue came up.
Sure.
Canola prices did hit the skids. They dropped a couple bucks a bushel. And then they kind of stabilized there. China is a very important, big client or customer of Canadian canola, but it's not the only customer. And China will continue to take canola oil. So that it's not a complete disaster, but the longer it goes on, the more product kind of gets backed up in Canadian farmers' bins. They're not able to sell it, or not able to sell it for the price they need to break even or profit from. So I guess the longer it goes on, the tougher it's gonna be for a canola farmer. On the other hand, processors in Canada may benefit from that because they will crush more oil, they'll crush it faster, and be able to sell the oil to China and other countries.
Yeah, let me ask you about that then, Leighton. What are some of the other options for canola farmers?
So if they've already got canola in the bin from last year that's not sold, the only option is to either sell at a reduced price or store it until this goes away, this trade issue.
Does it have an expiry date? Like, can you only store it for so long?
No, canola you can store for quite a while. Your issues are you have to monitor that it won't start heating up because it's got moisture in it or something. And the other issue is if you've got bills to pay, canola in the bin doesn't pay the bills. So if you can afford to hold it, to have a bank forward you more money to pay your other bills and keep that in storage and wait, that works. Otherwise, they would sell at a reduced price just to get it moved.
How about the federal government's proposal of possibly allowing an increase in the amount of canola used in producing a biofuel? How much of a help would that really be to canola farmers?
You know, I won't claim to be an expert on this. It's a great idea to be able to use some byproducts to make fuel. To take canola and strictly try and push it through the biofuels, that funnel is pretty small right now. There's no way we can take the crop and try and put it into a biofuel. We just don't have the capacity to do that. And the economics are a little questionable. They're a little bit of a stretch to make the economics work, turning canola into diesel fuel.
So China has banned Canadian canola, peas, and they're doing a lot more inspections on beef and pork. This is one of our biggest trading partners. So this is really causing a dent in our economy, wouldn't you say?
It definitely, anytime you disrupt the marketplace, and when you're dealing with your second or third largest customer, which China is, we're going to feel the effects as a business, as an agricultural community. The pork, having said that, pork is still moving. It's just under greater scrutiny and reduced speed of commerce. Mm-hmm. Beef has not been affected, but it's a cloud on the horizon for sure. Canola, as we talked about, is slowed down considerably. How will it affect it? These things just take time to kind of get back to the ledger on the profit loss side of the ledger, but we are feeling it, and the agricultural community will feel the pain.
An Alberta contingent went to Seoul, South Korea, and Tokyo, Japan, to look at possibly other markets. We could bring our beef, our pork, our canola to. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, anytime you can take dependency off of one market. Mm-hmm. So America is still our biggest market.
Right.
China is our number 2, number 3, depending which products we're talking about. Whenever we can kind of spread your customer base, widen it out, it reduces some risk. So you're not reliant just on China or just on U.S.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
There you go. There's a good farm analogy right there. But
what about the carbon tax? Jason Kenney, our premier, has promised, he delivered. He's repealed the provincial carbon tax, waiting for the federal one to kick in now. But how much is that helping profits for you?
I guess it just happened, so I have no sense of measurement yet, other than it's reduced some of our fuel costs right up front, as with anybody else. So we have transportation costs, we have semis, tractors, trucks on the road all the time. So there is a small benefit from that. I could see possibly some benefit from electrical, natural gas reductions as we get back into winter or into heavy pumping season for irrigation. Because even though there's not a carbon tax on electricity, we know darn well that it has caused the electrical price to go up because some of the issues around coal burning and emissions. So will we save some money? Possibly. It's not the large part of our sort of income expense statement, but I guess it will have a small effect, yeah.
I've noticed that there's an increase in popularity right now with veggie burgers. The almost beef, almost meat, right? And right, yeah, that's one of it, sure, whatever you want to call it, right? So how do you handle that? How do you deal with that?
I guess I would say choice. A consumer likes choice. If they want choice, I guess give them choice. The Beyond Meat, the plant-based burger that we hear about, some of that marketplace will be actually to a whole new market, which is people that don't presently eat burgers made out of real beef. So that marketplace won't really affect beef sales, in my opinion. It may help McDonald's or A&W or whatever, but what it might affect is where do we go in the future? Does meat get a percentage of it get replaced by veggie, burger, plant-based? But I suppose it's something we better keep our eye on as a beef industry. But it's still hard it's hard to enjoy fake meat when you've had the real stuff. It's just.
Well, I'm a big believer. I love my steak. I got to tell you, my barbecued steak. Lee, let me ask you, how are beef farmers really responding to recent consumer demand for hormone-free and antibiotic-free beef?
So that's a bit of a misconceived concept already right there. There's no such thing as hormone-free. There's no such edible product on earth that's hormone-free, because hormones is used in everything. Hormones is how plants grow. It's how biological systems work, how cells divide. Hormones are always present. So an antibiotic-free, that's another one. There is no antibiotics in meat sold in Alberta or in Canada or in North America, for that part, I would hope, the world.
So I've seen a certain fast food restaurant, that's been their big part of their marketing and advertising. We have antibiotic-free beef, antibiotic-free beef, and I'm like, wait a minute, isn't that with all beef producers, antibiotic-free?
Yeah.
So
that good point. It is antibiotic-free, and there's no such thing as hormone-free. Now, raised without any use of antibiotics, or raised without any use of additional hormone, I guess that's a claim. There again, it's a choice a consumer can make. Does it change the safety of the food, or the value of the food, or the health benefits? No. There's no measurable way to tell the difference. So it really comes down to, if a consumer has a certain choice that they think they can vote with their wallet, then they're allowed to do that, I guess.
how can you put our viewers' minds at ease with the potential of a mad cow disease? We don't have to be as concerned about that now.
Yeah, like a thing like BSE was a we've learned a lot from that, and there's been just a staggering amount of food safety rules put in place from 2003 when we discovered one in Canada. We something like BSE has basically been eliminated from Canada. It got imported from another country, from England, from Europe, but so that's how it got here. We definitely didn't see it run out of control here. We found a few cases of it, but the rules in place today, basically banning all meat and bone meal, blood meal used in any beef production, has basically eliminated any chance of that moving forward or happening again.
Right. Cannabis became legal, recreational use cannabis, last October, and multi-billion-dollar empire. Now it's huge. You can't stop it. Are some farmers considering, forget canola, forget wheat, forget barley, I'm going with cannabis. That I can make a little bit more money that way. Have you heard any of that?
I don't know of anybody doing that.
Okay.
It's my understanding is it's not something you would go out and farm 100 acres of this product. It's going to be in a greenhouse controlled environment.
Right.
Almost more of a horticultural or a greenhouse type of business than a farm, large acre prairie provinces sort of business, I would say.
Okay, so keep up with the canola.
We're going to probably keep with the legal stuff, or the stuff that used to not be legal. It used to be always legal. Canola, corn, wheat, barley, beets, potatoes.
What's hardiest here in southwestern Alberta? Potatoes, corn?
Without irrigation, it would be the grasses and the wheats and barleys.
Okay.
Because we have irrigation, potatoes, canola, beets, sugar beets, hybrids, canola seed, corn. These are all, because we have irrigation, we can grow these high value crops. The other ones are basically they're a staple, but they're a low value compared to these other crops that I just mentioned.
Leighton Kolk, owner of Kolk Farms, a board member of the Alberta Cattle Feeders Association. Thanks a lot for joining me here in studio.
You're welcome. Thank you.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and have a great night.